I just want to introduce you to Vanessa T. Vanessa Winter. She's a senior consultant in diversity. Vanessa Winter has worked in the diversity as a transformation consultancy since 2001. She has held a BA Honours in Psychology and MBA, as well as a higher diploma in education, national diploma in occupational direct education, training and development. Vanessa is a former academic who headed up the education, training and development of the Centre of the Career Development in Technical Witwatersrand, and in the late 1990s. She is still involved in academia, lecturing and designing curricula and learning program material and various degrees and programs within the private higher education space. Vanessa Winter has considerable experiences in the field of organization development and transformation. She has the assets of many organizations within the element of skills and development, employment equity, broad-based Black economic empowerment, which is a BBBEE legislation. She has frequently trained skills development, employment equity, equities committees, and has fulfilled the role of skill development facilitator, which is the SDF, and for a range of organizations. Vanessa Winter has also designed and implemented monitoring and evolutional system that to measure the efficiency of transformation strategies within the organization. Most recently, her work has focused on assisting organizations in preparing for the implementation of amended BBBEE codes.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone today? Good. Great. Right, so what I'm here to do today is to talk a little bit about BBBEE. It is quite a legislative field as well as a complex field with pieces of varying legislation feeding into the umbrella of BBBEE. But before I get into the nitty-gritties of BBBEE, I just want to introduce our consultancy. So I'm from a consultancy called Diversity. We are a transformation consultancy which has been operating for over 23 years now. We have extensive experience in both the public and private sector organizations. We go into organizations, we analyze their organizational culture, we determine the status quo, we look at barriers and enablers to diversity and to transformation, and then we put in place processes to assist the organization with their transformation. And we do this within the framework of the legislation. We are a level 2 BBBEE company, which means that we are 51% Black owned. As you'll see later on today or this morning, the highest BBBEE level is a level 1, and the lowest being non-compliance. And we have a multicultural team. You just see me here today, but I'm backed up with a large team of consultants who are experienced in different spheres of transformation, which is, it's quite a big area, transformation. Some of our clients are shown there. There are clients that we've established long relationships with. For example, Denel I've worked with for almost 10 years, assisting them with the monitoring and evaluation of their transformation strategy. More recently, a big client that we worked with last year was Pearson, and you'll also see that we have relationships as well with higher education institutions. We worked a lot in that space as well. Okay, so that's an overview of our organization. Okay, let's start off with what do you understand about BBBEE? It's in the news all the time. it's on the radio, it's on, you hear interviews on TV. What comes to mind when you hear the word broad-based black economic empowerment, or the acronym BBBEE? Anyone? Yes, thank you.
Legislation that tries to encourage black ownership and employment within companies.
Right.
Yeah, so both high levels, managerial levels, and proper ownership is within companies of black individuals.
Okay, great. So you've mentioned two things. You've mentioned the importance of black ownership, and in addition to that, the importance of employment of black people throughout the organization. Okay, so we're not just focusing on ownership, we're focusing on something else. The employment, achieving representativity of black people across the organization.
I think the broad base includes as well women and also people who have disabilities, perhaps, and enlargement as well.
Yes, great. Okay, so it's not only looking at race, we're looking at empowerment across the organization in terms of black people, in terms of women, in terms of people with disabilities. Okay. Anyone else want to add? What else do you know about BBBEE?
It seeks to address the issue of previously qualified people from previously disadvantaged groups being granted equal opportunity within the workplace, and also now new legislation of Chinese even being included as one of the as black with women, children, and women and people with disabilities.
Right, great, okay. So there's the issue of redress, and you raise an interesting point that Chinese people are included in the broader category of black people. But there is a but there. Is it all Chinese people? No. Can you help me?
I'm not so clued up on it, but I do know it was maybe most of them that were affected, that they're not everyone.
Right, so it was those Chinese people who were living in South Africa and who were subjected to the apartheid legislation who are now beneficiaries of BBBEE. Chinese people who arrived in South Africa 5 years ago, who've lived in China all their life, are not beneficiaries of BBBEE. Okay, so you've told me, you've given me quite a few things, and you're on the mark. You obviously are taking note of the interviews and what's happening in the press. No one has told me or mentioned whether BBBEE is a positive or a negative. You haven't given me any idea as to whether it's positive or negative. Yes, Lego?
Yeah, it's a great policy. It means well, but it also allows for tokenism, especially because the policy is to address the issue of non-collaboration and non-inclusive, and being non-inclusive within particular industries that are held by particular races.
Right.
And that was their practice, and that's how we were able to build and thrive in the society through practices of non-collaboration.
Right.
So a policy like this, although it means well, then what? I mean, there are many stories that we read in the press about how token blacks essentially are put into these workspaces or are sent on to meetings without actually being clued up about, or firms, for example, without actually being included in the case or decision-making processes. They're just there to be the face, to be like, oh yeah, sorry, we are being compliant and whatever for tax reasons, or so. It can be problematic.
Yeah, and you've raised a very important point, and what you've mentioned, tokenism, it falls within the broader heading of fronting, and the DTI picked that up, and as a result, the BBBEE legislation was amended, and more stringent conditions and bodies have been put in place, such as the BBBEE Commission, that now, for fronting, the CEO of a company can be sent to jail. Okay, so that is definitely a negative side of looking for a shortcut, unethical approach to the so-called implementation of BBBEE.
My issue is number one, women, and second one is inclusion, because I feel like people love to throw that word around without necessarily, because I mean it's one thing to say that our company is inclusive of black people, but then the conditions within that company are exclusionary.
Yes.
So it's one thing to employ black people, because I think I used to work in a company where you had black people within the company, and the company was this amazing white-owned corporation, which prided itself on employing black people because it's so progressive. And then, but then black people were confined to specific positions, and then you would have people who weren't necessarily qualified, who were white, who were in managerial positions. And also the other thing of women, because I feel like it's very important to also be mindful in terms of how gender intersects or interacts with other issues. So I don't think it's fair for me to be treated the same way as a company would treat a white woman. Because I feel like I have various issues which intersect in addition to my gender. I have the class thing, I have the race thing. So I feel like it's not fair to say, okay, fine, we're going to include all women and then just use it as a blank thing, but then not be mindful of how other issues intersect. And also like the whole thing of it seems like political symbolism. Like I think it touches on what Lebo was saying, where you just have these companies that, oh, look at us, we're so progressive. And I feel like it's exploitation, it's the pornography of blackness, where you have companies just employing black people because they want to be funded.
Some great points there, excellent. And you have definitely hit the nail on the head with regards to a major criticism or shortfall of the implementation of the legislation, that companies will go out and market. We are progressive, to use your term. We have achieved a high BBBEE level score, because you can do that without effecting real transformation within your company. So those are some great points. Okay, thank you for that input. I'm going to move on now because I've got a lot to cover. But maybe keep your points and consider the input that you want to give in relation to what I'm going to present, and then we'll take more discussion towards the end of the session. You've got a burning issue.
No. The amendment. I just want to know, when was it amended?
Okay. That's an important question, and it's important because some people are still operating within the framework, their mindset is still within the framework of the original codes versus the amended codes. So the amended legislation was promulgated in 2013, but it was effected as from May 2015. So companies, it's now coming up to that point in time when May 2016 comes around. This is the first time that organizations are going to be verified against the amended codes. Okay, we don't have any companies as yet who've been verified against the amended codes, and you'll see that the amended codes are considered to be more stringent and it's more difficult for companies to achieve the score, the BBBEE score, which they achieved against the original codes. All right, so let's have a look. What is BBBEE? If we take the official definition from the Department of Trade and Industry, it's an integrated and inherent socio-economic process that directly contributes to the transformation of South Africa and brings about significant increases in the number of black people that manage, own, and control the country's economy, as well as significant decreases in inequalities. Okay, so note there that it doesn't mention companies or organizations. It is broad-based Black economic empowerment, which is focused on the socio-economic transformation of the country. One of the key vehicles to bring about that transformation is the transformation of organizations, whether it's a non-profit organization or whether it's a commercial, private sector organization. So it's the focus overall is the socio-economic transformation of South Africa. How do we achieve that? That lady mentioned that we achieve it through ownership. We achieve it through greater representativity at all levels within our organizations, whether private, public, non-profit. But also we achieve it through initiatives such as socio-economic development, enterprise development, and supplier development. Now, what is the business case for BBBEE? Now throughout this morning I'm going to be talking from two perspectives. I'm going to be talking from the perspective of a small NGO or small non-profit organization, a civil society organization, and I'm also going to be talking from the perspective of a corporate, a private sector organization, because the BBBEE legislation is applicable to both in similar and different ways. Okay, you are likely to, or it's possible that you will start your own NGOs or NPOs. If you haven't already, you may join an NGO, you may work within a corporate. So it's important that you understand both perspectives. Okay, now let's have a look at the business case from the perspective of let's say a non-profit, a small non-profit. For you to comply with the BBBEE legislation is important because it will ensure credibility and legitimacy. If you as an NPO are looking for a donor organization, they are likely to want to see your BBBEE certificate. Okay, and by having that piece of paper which states that you are a level 4 or a level 2 BBBEE contributor will give you legitimacy and will give you a step up over the NPO who's applying as well, but doesn't have that certificate. Okay, so it gives you credibility and legitimacy. It also demonstrates to all stakeholders that you are active in participating in South Africa's transformation, economic development and growth, that you've bought into the legislation, that you understand why BBBEE needs to be implemented. And through thorough and efficient compliance, you will be able to gain competitive advantage over your non-compliant competitors, or even your competitors who are doing it as a tick box exercise rather than a sustainability, authentic transformation process. Okay. So what are the BBBEE codes? Okay, the gentleman asked, when did the amended codes come into effect? They came into effect last year in May, and there are significant differences from the original codes. The original codes, we had 7 pillars, all right? 7 elements. We refer to each of these as elements, and for each element there is a scorecard. So a large NPO or a large corporate, organizations that have a turnover of greater than 50 million would be assessed against a scorecard for each of these elements. Okay? So you'll see that originally we had ownership, management control, employment equity, skills development, preferential procurement, enterprise development, and socio-economic development. If we have a look at the amended codes, some of these elements have been collapsed into one. Now we only have 5 elements, and a large an organization with a turnover of greater than 50 million would be assessed against all 5 of those. Ownership, what is our black ownership? Management control. Management control looks at who are our managers, what is the representativity of the people who are making the decisions in our company, right from your your executives right down to your junior management. Okay. The amended codes look at skills development as a standalone element like the original codes did. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we'll make copies of these slides available to you. We've also prepared a booklet with a summary. It's about a 37-page booklet that you'll all receive with all this information once we've finished with the presentation. Skills development focuses on how are we developing skills amongst black people within our NPO or within our private sector organization. A big change, interestingly, from the original to the amended codes is skills development now includes the training of unemployed black people. So a corporate can train unemployed black people and score positively in terms of the skills development scorecard. And that's an important aspect for NPOs to keep in mind. Look what's happened here. Preferential procurement and enterprise development has been collapsed into enterprise and supplier development. Does that mean that preferential procurement is out the window, that we're no longer focusing on preferential procurement? No. This is the element which carries the most points. It is the heftiest one. Why? Because it's trying to create facilitate the development of SMEs through large corporates, for example, developing enterprises, developing them to such a point that they are then brought into their supply chain and become suppliers to the organization. So this element is broken up into 3 sub-elements: preferential procurement, enterprise development, and supplier development. Okay. And then we have the socio-economic development element, which remains there. So you'll see from these elements that it's very broad-based. Okay, it looks at ownership, it looks at representativity within the company, it looks at the development of skills of people within the company as well as people outside of the company. It looks at who do we buy goods and services from. It looks at, are we developing black enterprises to supply our supply chain? Okay, and it looks at what is known as the charitable element as well, looking at, although the focus has changed somewhat, but looking at development within communities. Okay, so very broad. Now let's have a look at the classification of entities and how that differs from the original to the amended codes. We have something known as the EME, which is the exempted micro enterprise. And under the original codes, those were classified as entities whose turnover was less than 5 million. Under the amended codes, the turnover was doubled. Okay. Now, interestingly, 95% of companies in South Africa are EMEs, exempted micro enterprises. And the DTI says that they are not. There is no BBBEE compliance for those companies, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Then the next entity we have is the QSE, the qualifying small enterprise, which was the enterprise whose turnover was between 5 million and 35 million under the original codes. That threshold has been pushed a bit higher, and under the amended codes, our QSEs now have a turnover between 10 million and 50 million. Okay? We say that QSEs have relaxed BBBEE compliance. And then you have your large enterprise whose turnover was in excess of 35 million. It's now in excess of 50 million, and they make up only 2% of all businesses in South Africa, and they are required to have full BBBEE compliance. Now, what do we mean by the EME having no BBBEE compliance? It's likely that if you go and set up your own NGO, or you start working for a small NGO, or even if you start up your own small business, that you're going to fall in this category. What do you need to do in order to get a BBBEE certificate? All you need to do is get a sworn affidavit stating what your black ownership is and what your turnover is. Okay? All EMEs, whether owned by white people or black people, are automatically level 4 BBBEE contributors. Okay? If an EME has 51% black ownership, they are automatically a level 2 BBBEE contributor. If the entity has 100% black ownership, they are automatically level 1. So they do not have to go through what some organizations consider a very onerous task of a verification agency coming in, assessing the organization against each of the scorecards. EMEs immediately qualify, whether black or white owned, for level 4 BBBEE as a BBBEE contributor. Okay. Now, how is that relevant? We're talking about businesses here. How is that relevant to a non-profit organization? Well, if a non-profit organization has receipts of less than 10 million and 75, if a non-profit has receipts of less than 10 million, they are automatically a level 4. If an EME has receipts of less than 10 million, plus 75% of their beneficiaries are black, then they are automatically a level 2. And if, it's the other way, automatically a level 1. And if that 51% of their beneficiaries are black, they are automatically a level 2. Okay.
And why was the amended code, why was the turnover level increased to be an EME?
I think it would be for various reasons. The economy, and also to facilitate SME growth. South Africa, there's a focus on developing SMEs, particularly black SMEs, and facilitating the growth of what the DTI calls the black industrialists. And so by increasing the turnover and taking away all BBBEE compliance requirements other than submitting a sworn affidavit in place of a BBBEE certificate, you were taking what was viewed an onerous paper-based, almost bureaucratic approach to being an active player within the economy. Okay. Oh, yes?
NPOs are not necessarily engineered to be making a profit. So how do you measure against times how much of turnover, because they're not really making that amount of a turnover.
Yes.
So wouldn't it be better if you measure how many maybe employees that you have in your organization, and then where do you render your services as to whether you can be a level 1 or a level 2, unlike profits, because you're not driven by profits in an NPO.
NPOs, that's an important question. So NPOs fall under get measured against a specialized enterprise scorecard, which takes into account the uniqueness of an NPO. So when we talk about NPOs, we don't talk about a turnover threshold, we talk about a receipts threshold. How much money you do have coming in the form of donations. And many NPOs fall within the EME sector. Then the second important component for an EME NPO is who are the beneficiaries of your initiatives. Are they all white people? If they are all white people, you are automatically a level 4. But are at least 51% of your beneficiaries who benefit from the work of your NPO black people? If there are 51% at least, you would be a level 2. Okay, so the importance here is looking at your receipts and looking at who your beneficiaries are. 75% of black beneficiaries plus receipts of less than 10 million, you would be a level 1.
Sorry, just on that, so is the leadership structure of the NPO, they're not considered in getting your BBBEE group? So like
that's an important question as well, thank you. If your receipts are in excess of 50 million, then you would need to go through a similar process of BBBEE verification, where they would look at leadership, which falls under management control. They would look at all of the elements except ownership. So they would assess the NPO under management control, skills development, enterprise and supply development, and social and economic development. Okay. Yes?
So what is the effect of having a level 4 affiliation? Do they get taxed more or?
Very good question. Thank you. Let's see if my next slide addresses it. Yes, it does. Okay. So, what do these levels mean? We're talking about level 1, level 4. So what? What does it mean? Okay. Organizations, NPOs, aim for a level 1. That's the best BBBEE score that you can get. You'll see, so this slide shows you that the points, the number of points that you need to get in order to be, for example, a level 2, the threshold is higher with the amended codes. So many companies will actually dip a level. If they haven't been working on their BBBEE strategy over this past 2 years, they're going to drop, I would say, at least 2 levels. Okay, when they get verified again in May. But to answer your question, level 4. If I'm a level 4 BBBEE contributor, I'm a small business, and a large corporate wants to buy from me or utilize my services. I'm a level 4. Company X is a level 1. Company Y, another competitor of mine, is non-compliant. They are going to look at my BBBEE score, and they are going to see, oh, Vanessa Winter, you level 4. That means that we can claim 100% of the money that we spend with you as BBBEE spend. But hold on. Company X is a level 1. If we spend 100 Rand with Company X, we can claim 135 rand as BBBEE spend. So we take the spend and we times it by the weighting. So obviously we're going to get more BBBEE points for spending it with company X. Let's think about our non-compliant company. Well, we spent 100 rand. If we spend 100 rand with our non-compliant company Y, we can claim nothing of that as BBBEE spend. So no company is required, other than government organizations, no NPO, no private sector organization is required to comply with the BBBEE legislation. But if you don't, people are not going to want to buy from you. Okay, they are obviously going to, so it's a self-regulating system that I need to ensure, if I want to secure business, that my BBBEE score is as high as it possibly can be. I need to be as transformed as possible and to get a competitive advantage. Okay, does that answer your question?
Sort of, because
Okay.
I'm a bit skeptical about the reason of the amended act. Why doesn't it address the issue of responsibility?
Why doesn't it address
The issue of non-compliance.
non-compliance?
Saying that it has been amended now, but something is still not being
Okay.
done about it.
Well, let's think about non-compliance. If I'm non-compliant, it's unlikely that anyone's going to buy from me. Okay. And it's likely that I'm going to go out of business. Perhaps it'll become clearer when we move on to the preferential procurement sub-element. And perhaps we can revisit your question at the end. Okay, all right. Just need to do a time check. Oh my goodness, okay. Let me move on. Okay, so this is the amended BBBEE code summarized in a nutshell. Okay, we've spoken about the elements. We have our 5 elements. These are the areas around which we need to transform. Okay, we need to be putting in place strategies to transform against these 5 elements. Coming back to the issue of being broad-based, your socio-economic development element addresses your environment, okay, your communities. Your enterprise and supply development element addresses the transformation of your supply chain. I don't want to procure, buy services from someone who is non-compliant, because that's going to negatively affect my transformation, my BBBEE score. So what I'm going to do, if I don't have any black supplier in this particular area, I'm going to start an enterprise development program, and people can come to me with proposals, and we can agree to an enterprise development plan, and I am going to assist that enterprise in growing and ultimately becoming a black supplier. Okay. Then you have the skills development, the management control, and the ownership elements, which address the company. Skills development and ownership can also address the environment. Okay. Now look what I've got here. Ownership, big red priority. Skills development, big red priority. Enterprise and supply development are priority elements. They were not priority elements in the original codes. Those are important elements that carry the most weight. Look at enterprise and supply development. 40 points plus 4 bonus points. That is where the government is trying to facilitate the transformation of the economy. Skills development, 20 points plus 5 bonus points. Ownership, 25 points. Now, these priority elements are important, because if I don't achieve a sub-minimum, if I don't achieve a certain threshold for ownership, skills development, and enterprise and supply development, if I don't do a certain amount for each of those elements, I will be discounted down an entire BBBEE level. So let's say I'm a level 4, based on the points that I've earned, I'm a level 4. But I have not achieved the 40% sub-minimum for skills development. I have not implemented learnerships for black people. I have not trained black people with disabilities. I have not achieved the sub-minimum of 40%. I will be discounted down an entire BBBEE level, which is a level 5. Okay. So that is how, through identifying these priority elements, that is where the focus of transformation is being shifted. These are important elements for transformation.
So is this only for large enterprise, or is this the relaxed as well?
This is for your generic enterprises, but for QSEs are a little bit more complicated. QSEs, your qualifying smaller enterprises, this also applies if you are not 51% or more black owned. Okay. Right. Okay, let's go through.
Does this framework not affect businesses who are dealing with imports and exports, especially if you're doing business with China or the UK?
Yes.
You're not necessarily going to comply with BEE. So how do they deal with that?
That's an excellent question. That's an excellent question, and it falls over here. Okay, so this becomes the element of focus. If we are importing, if our business is importing from China, Malaysia, wherever, if we are importing, we can exclude those imports from our BBBEE spend. So in other words, it won't affect our BBBEE spend if we can prove that product cannot be made in South Africa. It is a unique product to China or Malaysia or India or wherever. But if it is not a unique product and it can be made in South Africa, we need to put in place a plan. We need to have a sound plan as to how we're going to start manufacturing that product or service locally. Okay. So the codes are very specific on that. Once again, with the intent to grow the South African economy, create jobs, and so on. Okay. Yes?
On the issue of amendment, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the reason why it was amended was it wasn't effective, right? So, like, how is this amended one going to work? Because if you're still saying that it's not a must to actually comply with this, I mean, if we look at the history of this country, majority, in fact, 99% of the companies are white-owned companies. These are companies which can still function on their own, except excluding us black people, so they can just continue to trade amongst each other, and then they can just say, you know what, we don't really need to comply. As it's saying, we don't have to comply with the BEE, but we can still function and make a lot of money, which I think is the case, and I don't think this is actually going to make any difference.
I hear what you're saying, but it is making a difference. Every single large corporate I know and that we work in is scrambling to improve their transformation strategy so that they can achieve a good enough BBBEE score, because it's their license to operate. If you don't, it's a requirement from government that if you do business with government, you have to be BBBEE compliant. That is a requirement. Within the private sector, there's so much competition that the private sector realizes that if they don't transform and they don't have decent BBBEE scores, they are going to go out of business. And we work in companies where the company wants to know, what is my competitor A's BBBEE score? What is my competitor's B? It's part of the strategic planning process. So, yeah.
Just to carry on, so in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, are we going to see like actually white people losing their privilege of ownership? We're going to see maybe a 50-50 in terms of people who actually own the economy?
Yes, and when you see the we're going to go into each of the elements and look at them at a high level. You'll see the targets that companies need to be aiming for in terms of ownership, for example, and in terms of management. There are ways where companies try to shortcut the process or quickly get a BBBEE score, high score, but those are not sustainable. And ultimately, the way the legislation is structured and conceptualized is you won't have your license to operate if you don't have a decent BBBEE score, which means that you are not effecting transformation within your company.
Has there been any talk around putting this into the Constitution, the BBBEE system?
No, but the fundamentals within the constitutional principles, BBBEE is built on constitutional principles.
No, I get that,
Yeah.
but I'm just asking about that. It's already made into a policy, so it's already in the system of governance.
Yeah.
So, because I understand what Pat is saying, it is necessary, and a lot of countries, when they've transformed, especially from a system of segregation, it's been a compulsory thing for the entire country to economically empower the disadvantaged. And we don't have any laws in the Constitution that speaks about economic empowerment.
That's
So
a good
if
point.
this is being implemented and it's going to be a necessity for you to operate.
That's
what I'm kind of asking. Is there no talk about that? Because maybe that's another direction that should be going into the university.
There isn't any talk, but I take your point. It is an important point. Thank you.
Like, just out of interest sake, under the banner of women, do you also include white trans women?
Okay, so under BBBEE, white women are not included. Under employment equity, white women are included, but the implementation of the Employment Equity Act, if you've achieved representativity, if your white woman complement mirrors that of the economically active population, then white women are no longer targets for employment equity.
But trans women specifically?
No. The legislation doesn't focus on trans women. It focuses only on race, gender as in male and female, and people with disabilities. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's have a look at the ownership element. Like we said, it's a priority element. If you do not achieve a sub-minimum of 40% against this element, your entire score gets discounted down a level. It's worth 25 points. What does it focus on? It focuses on the voting rights and the economic interest, okay, that black people have within the company. The targets are black people need to have 25% economic interest plus 1 vote. Black women, not white women, just black women, 10%. Okay? Black designated groups. Now here we refer to your black designated groups include your youth, black people living in rural areas, your military veterans, unemployed black people, and people with disabilities. The target there for voting rights and economic interest is 3%. Okay? And then new entrants, new black entrants. black people who have never had a stake in the ownership of a company, the focus there is 2%, the target rather. Okay, so that's the focus.
How does the system work? I don't really understand what you mean.
So there's a scorecard. Okay, I haven't included the scorecard in my presentation, but it is the scorecards for each of the elements are in the booklet that you're going to receive. And what happens is, when you are these are the targets you need to work towards, and if, for example, you achieve 25% of your black people have 25% economic interest in your company, then you achieve a set number of points. And you receive points for the extent to which you meet each of these targets, and those points get tallied to something out of 25 points. And that total then gets totaled together with all the elements, and you get your score. If we go back to the slide, you get your score. So if you get 60 points, you would end up a level 7 BBBEE. Okay, but the scorecards are quite detailed, and they are in the booklets that you'll get after the session. Okay. All right. That's ownership. Let's now look at management control. Okay. Now, management control carries 19 points. Please note that the points are a little bit different for NPOs, and I will give you the points for NPOs just now. NPOs, the ownership element does not get considered. Okay. Only the 4 remaining elements are considered for NPOs. So the points are slightly more for management control, for NPOs. This measures participation by black people and black women at board and management level. And you, for example, board participant, your participation, your black target is 50%, black women, your target is 25%. Executive management, black target is 60%, black woman target is 30%. As we go down the management levels, so the target increases. So at junior management, your black target is 88% and your black woman target is 44%.
Are there any BBBEE codes that apply to institutions of higher learning?
Yes, yeah.
And how does that work? And
pretty much the same as your NPO, your specialized enterprise scorecards.
So at a management and control level, they do not need to be combined. Okay.
No. Management control they do. Ownership they don't. Because public higher education institutions, it's not like owner. It's a public body, a public entity. So the ownership element they don't need to comply with. They're not verified against it. But certainly the management control element, they do need to, and they will be verified against it. So looking at who your managers are and whether those targets are met. Okay.
These are the new amendments?
Yes. These are the amended codes. Yeah.
Where institutions are going to be verified against it come May this year?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Because they would have had it came into effect May 2015. Most entities had their last BBBEE verification in April 2015, so as to avoid being verified against the amended codes. Now, as May 2016 comes around, so the amended codes will be used to verify the various entities.
Just for clarity, when you talk about black, you talk about Indian, Chinese, black and Chinese.
Yes.
And do they make provisions for, let's say, in a case where maybe management, they're all Chinese and they're meeting the BBBEE codes?
That's also an excellent question. Okay, so let's first address, what does black include? Black includes African, coloured, and Indian South Africans. Okay? South Africans and Chinese who lived in South Africa prior to the 27th of April 1994 and so were subject to the apartheid policies. Okay. It does not include foreign nationals. Okay. So if I am a colored person from Zambia, I arrived in South Africa on the 28th of April 1994, I am not considered as a black South African. I am not a beneficiary of BBBEE. Okay. That gentleman, yes?
I mean, there's the definition of black made for certain provisions. In that, I do not feel that it's the definition is transformation, like it translates to transformation. That definition of blackness, which involves Chinese, doesn't address the idea that black people, these are African black people, are the ones that the apartheid regime, oppressed more. And I'm just thinking, equating that to then access to education, it again translates that the Indian or Chinese might have had access to education, and automatically that means they will be the ones getting more empowered. And so I do not feel like the score then becomes a true reflection of our society or it brings true transformation.
I hear your point, and especially when, because Chinese were originally not included in the definition of black according to Employment Equity and the BBBEE. And there was an issue, there was a lot of debate around it. I hear what you're saying, because many people hold the view that you hold. Okay, so I hear what you say. Yeah?
Just clarity there on foreigners. So let's say I'm a Nigerian guy. I came here in 1992. So do I qualify for?
Yes, yes. If you were subjected to the policies of apartheid, and because prior to 1994, because of your race, due to the apartheid policies, you were not able to become a South African citizen, absolutely. If your parents or a parent lived here prior to the 27th of April 1994 and they were subjected to apartheid policies, even if you were staying in Botswana, Zimbabwe, wherever, you still, I had to use the word qualify, but it's BBBEE speak, so apologies, as a black South African. Okay, all right. Good, level?
Yes, what we also see, right, with the inclusion of other races under the black umbrella is that what happens is that races are set up against each other for managerial positions, and colors and Indians are used as a buffer between white and black, right? As police, to police sort of the blacks within a particular company. So I find that quite problematic as well.
And a very interesting point, Lebo, because that brings us to this. Okay, and this is the first time it's been brought into the BBBEE legislation. That's the economically active population. And speaking to your point, what was employment equity finding? Employment equity was finding that yes, companies are transforming. They are employing people from the designated groups. But, hold on, while we had an underrepresentation of white women at managerial levels, while we had an underrepresentation of Indian men and women at managerial levels, now all of a sudden we've got an overrepresentation of white women and Indian men and women at managerial levels. And that speaks to your point. And so what BBBEE is now doing is for the senior manager, middle manager, and junior management levels, in order to this 88% or that 60% needs to mirror the economically active population. What is the economically active population? It's South Africa's population. We have a national economically active population. We also have provincial or regional economically active populations. So if you tell me that, and you'll see in case of BBBEE, white men and women are excluded, it's only black. But if we have only at junior management level got coloured and Indian, for example, men and women, we have 0% African males and 0% African females. That's going to substantially negatively affect our score. Because ultimately, at senior manager, middle manager, and junior management level, our black managers need to be 40.7% African male, 5.8% coloured male, 1.9% Indian male. Okay, so our workforce, our employees within our NPO need to mirror the economically active population. If we are a company that operates nationally, we generally use the national EAP. If we're a company that operates provincially, then we generally will use the provincial EAP. And this EAP changes all the time. Stats SA releases new stats on the EAP every quarter.
Given the amendment to this act, is it possible to, or just viable to now, let me say, reshuffle your junior or middle management on the basis of trying to increase your score and bring in more economically able, whatever?
Are you talking about reshuffle your black junior and middle?
No, you're right.
Okay, very important. You need, and that's what needs to happen. Okay, companies need to move towards a management structure which ultimately mirrors the EAP. And for that, they need various strategies in place. So, their recruitment and selection strategy, their HR pipeline, first of all, their succession planning strategy, their training and development strategy, all needs to speak to moving, transforming the workforce so that it looks like this. Yeah?
I mean, people in managerial positions usually turn out to long-term contracts. So I mean, in terms of like a short-term, middle-term fix, can you remove people?
No.
And use BBBEE as a justification?
No. No. That would also not be a sustainable initiative. The transformation of the company needs to be based on a strategy which has short, medium, long-term growth, and which has multiple action plans supporting it. So an action plan is to the development of your HR pipeline, your talent pipeline, your recruitment and selection strategy. And important to that is the next element, which is skills development. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got 20 more minutes. Okay, I'm going to move a bit faster. Your skills development element, remember, is a priority element. It's worth 20 points with 5 bonus points. Those 5 bonus points are for the absorption of learners who have successfully completed learnerships into your company. Have you all heard about learnerships? I'm sure you have. Okay, so you're familiar that it's a wonderful concept. It's about taking a tripartite contract between a SETA, the Sector Education Training Authority, between the learner and between the company, and placing the learner in the company where he or she gets workplace experience. Okay, so it's a training and development initiative, a very sound concept. What has been happening? Learnerships have been implemented, and okay, it's finished now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, yes, okay. So what? All right, we got some tax incentives, We got some skills development grants, that's great, but our learner is gone. Our person who has the workplace experience that can now help with the achieving greater representativity in our workforce is gone. Now, that 5 bonus points a company can get for the absorption of learners who have successfully completed learnerships within their company. Okay, so that's the incentive. They don't only adopt a short-term approach and implement the learnership. Make sure you've got a plan to make the people on the learnerships part of your talent pipeline, part of your talent management strategy, which will ultimately assist in the transformation of your workforce and improve representativity. Okay, an important point about skills development is you need to be compliant with the skills development legislation. The skills development legislation requires that you conduct a skills needs analysis, that you implement, draw up skills plans, and skills plans which talk to employment equity, which is something which companies have not got in the past, that talk to the transformation of your workforce, that you implement those skills plans and then you report on those skills plans. And in doing that, you get grants from a body called a Sector Education and Training Authority. If you are not complying with the skills development legislation, which one of our clients wasn't, you get 0 for your priority, your skills development priority element. Okay. Even if you scored 19 out of 20 or 24 out of 25, if you have not submitted your workplace skills plan, annual training report, pivotal skills report to your Sector Education and Training Authority, you get 0. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is compliance with other pieces of transformation related legislation is important to BBBEE as well. Okay. As I mentioned before, a major change with the amended codes is that skills development now spend for the training of black people on who are employees as well as black people who are unemployed outside of your company qualifies. Very important is that there must be a focus on accredited training initiatives. There's a focus on bursaries, for example, for degree programs or diploma programs. There's a focus on learnerships, on internships, on apprenticeships, on unit standards-based assessed programs. Okay. Informal programs such as courses, on-the-job training, but programs for which there is no assessment, and programs that are not credit bearing, so you don't get credits for a unit standard or credits against a diploma. The amount of spend that can be claimed for those is capped at 15%. So the intent is to promote skills development against diploma, degree, learnership, more meaty courses that carry credit. Okay. And once again, the EAP is important. When you are scored against the skills development scorecard, if the profile of the beneficiaries does not mirror the profile of the economically active population, and so if your profile of your beneficiaries of a national NPO or a national company is not 40.7% black, 5.8% colored male, African male, colored male, and so on, then there is a limit to the number of points that you can score. Okay. And once again, the profile of your beneficiaries needs to mirror the EAP so as to facilitate the transformation of your workforce. Right. Enterprise and supply development, a very important one for a small NPO. Okay. if that's the direction that you're going to take and set up your own NPO. You now have power. The big corporates need you. They are going to be assessed and they are going to earn points on the enterprises that they've developed, on the suppliers they've developed. So very often corporates will have, large organizations will have days where they invite small businesses or NGOs in to talk to them. And if you have an idea that you feel that a big corporate could benefit from, pitch it to them. You have power now to talk to them. They are interested in hearing what you have to say and what initiatives of yours they can fund. Okay, so that's important for NPOs. The purpose of the enterprise and supply development element is focus on strengthening and increasing local procurement. Like I said, there's 3 sub-elements: preferential procurement, enterprise development, supply development. Preferential procurement, who are we procuring from? Are we procuring from empowering suppliers? This is a big thing in the amended codes. If you are buying from a supplier who's a level 1 BBBEE contributor, but they are not an empowering supplier, you claim 0 of your spend with them as BBBEE spend. If, however, you are buying from a white-owned company who is a level 8, okay, it's very, very low level, but they are an empowering supplier, you can claim your spend as BBBEE spend. Okay, being a level 8, that'll be 10% of it, but it will still be more than the level 1 BBBEE supplier. Now, that's how, what I'm trying to get across is that is how important the empowering supplier concept is. What do you need to be in order to be an empowering supplier? Local content. So 25% of your cost of sales needs to be spent in South Africa. Job creation, at least 50% of the jobs that you created within the particular year are for black people. Transformation of raw material, 25% of that happened locally. Skills transfer, 12 days per annum your company has spent in transferring skills to community organizations, other enterprises. And if you're in the service industry, 85% of your labor cost is for South African employees. To be an empowering supplier, you need to meet 3 of these 5 criteria. Okay, if you don't, the BBBEE spend is 0. Okay, now the Department of Trade and Industry has given a grace period. This first year of the implementation of the amended codes, this will not apply, but it will start applying after May 2016 as we get into the second year of the amended BBBEE codes. Now, EMEs. Remember we spoke at the beginning, if you're an EME, your turnover or your receipts, if you're an NPO, is less than 10 million. You are automatically a level 4. Are you an empowering supplier? Yes, you are. You are automatically an empowering supplier if you are an EME. Okay. Alright, the focus here on preferential procurement, enterprise development and supply development is on 51% black-owned suppliers and on 30% black-owned, women-owned suppliers or greater. Also important here with this particular element is companies need to be procuring from a range of entities, from black-owned entities, from black woman-owned entities, from EMEs, and they earn points for procuring from each of these entities. From QSEs, okay, so it's important that organizations diversify the suppliers from whom they procure. Socio-economic development, that's the final element and the one that is only worth 5 points. And the one which companies are very good at earning their points, because they usually have a corporate affairs department. It's known as the charity element, but the amended codes have tried to bring about a change to it, to make people more active beneficiaries, more active participants in their own lives. So the focus has changed to having the objective of facilitating income-generating activities for targeted beneficiaries. The objective used to be to promote sustainable access to the economy. We've taken that objective a step higher. Your socio-economic development initiatives need to have the objective of facilitating income-generating activities for targeted beneficiaries. Okay? And there are some examples of what constitutes socio-economic development. Yes?
Could you please elaborate on the consequences of having a high or low BBBEE spend? So what happens then?
So if you've got if your BBBEE spend, let me go to the slide. Because time is marching on. Okay, so if you have a high BBBEE spend, it means that you're going to have a high score for that preferential procurement sub-element of enterprise and supply development, which means that it's going to boost your overall score, which will ultimately give you a higher BBBEE level, which will make you more competitive. But when a large organization or large NPO gets scored against the preferential procurement sub-element, they get assessed against all of this. 80% of your suppliers need to be empowering suppliers. The target for spend with QSEs is 15% of your spend needs to be with QSEs, 15% with EMEs, 40% with empowering suppliers that are at least 51% black owned, and 12% with empowering suppliers that are at least 30% black owned. Okay. And can you see how with these targets, the intent of these targets is that your supply chain will be transformed. Some organizations say, and I've heard it said, oh, but we don't know any black woman-owned companies. How can you expect us to procure from a company that doesn't exist? There's no black woman-owned companies in this area. Well, there's enterprise development, and then there's supplier development. Okay, so it's the legislation is quite complex and incredibly well thought out. Okay. I see that we're running out of time, so I just want to conclude with some high level. What I just wanted to show you, I spoke about the specialized enterprise. So your NPO, this is your generic scorecard, that's your specialized scorecard. Remember I said that there were no points for ownership for NPOs, and those points were transferred to other elements. So a large NPO would be there would be 20 points for management control, 25 plus 5 points for skills development, 50 plus 4. So your preferential procurement, enterprise development and supply development is critical for your larger NPOs. And then socio-economic development is 5. as an NPO, if we think about NPO specifically and BBBEE, what's important in the amended codes is we're moving away from charity, from the NPO being viewed as a charity organization, to the NPO being viewed as a BBBEE beneficiary and an important player in transformation overall. Okay? When we look at skills development, if we're looking at the relationship between a donor organization and an NPO, skills development is an important element when it comes to donor organizations. Donors, for example, are expected to upskill unemployed black people. A relationship could be formed there with an NPO. An NPO could assist the donor organization with the upskilling of unemployed black people. Enterprise and supply development is critical, is what probably the most important element where a relationship with a donor organization could be very beneficial. Under the original codes, your donor organizations would just throw money at an entity, at an NPO, and claim points for that. And many of those NPOs just went under after a year. There was no sustainability built into the system. Now, your donor organization and your NPO need to sit down together, put in place an enterprise development plan which is at least 3 years, so that relationship is maintained over time, and so that the development that takes place is legitimate and impactful. Okay. And then obviously socio-economic development is still an important element, and NPOs can establish relationship with donor organizations and play an important role in finding ways to achieve the objective of facilitating sustainable income generating activities. Before I take a question, I just want to go to one last slide. You'll receive these slides. The slides that I'm not going through are just highlights as to what parts of the elements are relevant, particularly to NPOs. I'm going to wrap up. Thanks for that. Just some important points from an NPO perspective. Integrate BBBEE with your NPO organizational strategy. Okay, it's key to transformation. It's key to the work of nonprofits. Your understanding of BBBEE should be reflected in your marketing material. It should be integrated in your marketing material so that when you go to a donor organization or you present a proposal for funding, the organization, the donor organization, can see what's in it for them. Okay? Sound record keeping, information and reporting is imperative. BBBEE verification is incredibly evidence driven, and paper trails and records and evidence management is imperative. Very often we go into companies and they perform poorly on their BBBEE verification, partly because the evidence isn't there. Contracts or plans with enterprise beneficiaries are not there, with supply development beneficiaries is not there. So evidence, data, information management is imperative. And compliance with the skills development and employment equity legislation is imperative as well. If you don't comply with the employment equity legislation, you will get 0 points for management control. No matter how wonderfully you've done, if you haven't submitted what you need to submit to the Department of Labour and you don't have certain employment equity processes in place, you will get 0 for management control. If you don't comply with the skills development legislation, no matter what great things you've done against the skills development scorecard, you will get 0 points. Okay, so the these pieces of transformation legislation are all interwoven. Okay, and that's all I have for you today.
Guys, on behalf of us three, I just want to say thank you to Vanessa Winter and for dissecting the BBBEE. Give her another hand.
Thank you. You've really been a great group. You engage with the subject matter, and you have raised some very important points. Great. Thank you.